Welcome to another episode of Lightroom Tutorials. My name is Ted Kalsar, and today I'm going to talk about the Lightroom Lens Blur. I have posted a video a few weeks ago regarding the Lightroom Lens Blur when it was new into Lightroom. Since then, I have received many emails that you guys were asking for a little bit more detailed about the lens blur. So I decided to go ahead and create an extended video to complete the previous one. First of all, lens blur is not just blurring the pictures, just making blurry parts of the picture. It creates a depth map, and due to the depth map, you can fine tweak the amount of blur, and also it will mimic the shallow depth of field with the lenses. Now, if you don't have a very wide opening lens, means lower aperture, or just like me, when you shoot with the smartphone, the smartphones do not have a shallow depth of field like this photo that you can see here right now. There is no depth of field. If you want to add the depth of field to a photo like this one, then the Lightroom Lens Blur would be your best choice. Here, I didn't, as you can see, I didn't do any edit on this photo, and through the information, you will see that it was taken by an iPhone 14. So that's why we have a lack of depth of field. So if I zoom in, you see the subject and the background and the foreground, everything is in focus. Now, I'm not talking about how to edit the pictures. I will post another video regarding how to edit photos. But in this one, I'm going to just talk about the new Lightroom Lens Blur. Now, when you come to Lightroom Lens Blur, you click on Apply. Now, usually Lightroom analyzes the photo, finds the subject, and creates a depth map. This is the depth map that you can see here. Now, the rectangular here shows the amount of uh, focus in the picture. If I move it to the background, now the subject or the foreground is out of focus and the background is in focus. Exactly the same thing that you do while you're taking photo. I can bring it back at any time. I can click on the subject, so it's the automatic, the AI help of subject. The other thing that you can do is, as you can see, this rectangular has two handles, one in the left-hand side, one on the right-hand side. By holding the handle, you can reduce for how far the sharpness or the blur goes. So you can just narrow it down just to the subject as it is here. Again, I go back to whatever the AI found because I think AI found it quite good. Now, here you can see before and after. It's a huge difference if you want to emphasize onto your subject. The blur amount, it talks for itself. You can make it more blurry or less blurry, depends on the picture. I cannot say an exact number because it all varies to your taste and to your image. The bokeh is the shape of bokeh. You can change the shape. In this photo, you cannot see because we don't have light sources in the background. I will discuss the focus and blur with the other picture. So this is one photo before and after. The second photo that I picked for you is this one. Again, when you look here, it is iPhone 14 Pro again. So it is the iPhone. Now look at the background. It's quite sharp. If I zoom in, you see it's quite sharp. And that's why it distracts the viewers from the main subject, which is she's standing here. Again, I'm not talking about any other editing. Of course, this picture can benefit from some editing. We don't talk about that. Well, I'm just going to apply the blurred. There we go. Now, here is before and after. Now, in this one, again, the AI picked it up quite nicely. I don't need to change anything, but in other photos, I show you how to add focus or blur to the picture. So I could adjust the amount of blur that will match my picture. Next is this photo here. In this photo, sometimes you want the background be in focus. Sometimes you want your subject be in focus. In this case, I want to make the subject blurry, but the background focus. So I apply, again, no editing. I apply the blur tool. There we go. Now, automatically, Lightroom AI picked up the subject. So if I visualize depth, you notice that this is when it comes to brighter color and the orange, it's the focus area, and the purple and black is the autofocus or blurred area. Now, see what happens when I go to move this rectangular. Whenever it's monochrome or black and white or grayscale, it is the part that gets the adjustments. That doesn't get the adjustment, means that it stays sharp. Colorful one gets the blurred. So if I move it to the background, now the background is on the grayscale and the foreground is color, means that the foreground is going to get the blur, not the background. But here is a problem. Uh, we want to blur this subject and also having the background, the boardwalk, be blurred too. Here, the boardwalk is not blurred. So if I cancel the visualize, see, I want her to be blurred and I want the blur goes all the way to the end of the boardwalk. But it didn't apply. So look at here. It's sharp. Now it's come to pick up the blur brush. With the blur brush, I'm just adjusting the size of my brush. I'm going to brush this area with one brush, and now that I brushed it, when I visualize it, see, it's color right now. So I can brush furthermore. That should do it. Now, here is the trick. Uh, this is the amount of blurred. I need to match the color with the color that's here. So if I go further away, see it changes the brightness. I have to match the color. By matching the color, I'm matching the amount of blurred to match with this part. Now, if you look here and here, you see they are pretty much matched right now. So I cancel the visualize. There we go. Now it's a better match. It makes more sense. Now, this leg, the right leg, needs to be more blurred. So I have to add another brush here, another blurred brush. And I'm going to brush that one to make it even uh, more blurry. So now if I show you, sorry, I canceled the wrong thing. This is before, everything is in focus. This is after. Now, again, this part should be blurred too, because when this part, this distance is blurred, the other ones should be blurred too. That's why I'm going to pick up the blurred, I'm going to adjust the visualize, and I'm going to brush this part. And I need to match the color with this one, with the amount of brush. There we go. Now we need to go further and make the blur a little bit further more with less amount of brush. So that's why I'm going to add another brush. And this time I'm going to brush this area. And this time I'm going to reduce the blur. Here we go. Now you see that we have before and after. We create a nice depth map for the photo. Of course, the main subject varies in each picture, so you have to work better. But I just wanted to show you it's not just the subject that Lightroom picks up. You can change the subject the way that you want. One of the photos that I wanted to discuss is this one. In this photo, I have a photographer here, a photographer there, but the background is so much clear. I didn't do any editing. I just wanted to show you, even with the blur tool, you can do lots. So I applied the blur tool. Most of the time, Lightroom picks up the right subject, such as here. And just with one click, I managed to capture a shallow depth of field for this photo, so I can increase the blur. One thing that I need to add is I need to add the background here. I need to make it blurry to look more natural, as blurred as this one. That's why the visualize depth comes handy. I can select the brush, blurred brush, and I'm going to brush this area. I'm going to the pose 2 and in this one. So the amount of blurred is matching. If you look at the color, the purple color here and the purple color there, they're matching. I don't want to blur this area because this is about the same distance as the other photographer. So let's see what we got. There we go. Now, if I want to go and make these parts blurry again, it's quite easy to do it. a little spot right there. So it's quite easy to do it, but you got the point. You got how you learned how to do it by yourself. Again, these are all photos with the smartphone pictures. There we go, iPhone 14. Again, you can see how sharp the background is, and it takes away from the beauty of the tulips. So I apply the lens blur, and here I want you to notice something. There we go. It is quite nice right now. I can increase the amount of blur, and then look at here. If I move it to the background, now the foreground is out of focus. If I bring it back to the foreground, now I can adjust the range of my blur. Now see the flowers in the background gets blurry, but the flowers in the foreground, they are clear. And if you visualize it, you see this. This is the part that is clear and it goes blurry, faded back there. The creativity is yours. You can use it the way that you find better matches your picture. In this photo, again, it's a iPhone photo, and as you can see, everything is quite sharp. You can simply apply the blur, and most probably the AI will pick up these photographers and blur the background. There we go. So it extended the blur to these two as well. So we have only one subject. Imagine that I want them in focus. In that case, I can do two things. Either I can expand my focusing range. As you can see, they came into the focus. So let's just do it that way. Now they are out of focus. Just the first photographer is in focus. If I expand the focusing range, they came into focus. I can adjust the amount of blur, and that it's that easy. The other thing that I can do is, let's just go back. If I want to make just the girl here in focus, it won't look natural because the depth of field goes by the distance. So if she is in focus, everything in that distance should be in focus. So that the expanding the focusing range would be my best choice here. This is another interesting one. Again, this is from iPhone. The interesting part is right now, this picture doesn't make any sense because everything is in focus. By applying the lens blur, I can fine tweak the picture quite nicely to the point that I uh, it, uh, I want to send a message that the path or the footsteps. Now, see the amount of blur. I can increase the amount of blur, but here it's very extended. I don't want that much. I want to make it less, even a little bit more. So here is before and after. Now, a boring picture like this turns to be an interesting, turns to have an interesting message, the footsteps. Now, even you can just go back to the background. Now we have totally a new photo that the footsteps are out of focus, but the sun is in focus. Last one, again, another smartphone picture. I like the composition of this picture. I didn't do any editing in this one. But I do like the composition of the picture. We have a guideline that takes us here, and the other guideline takes us back to the scene. The problem is so many, if you look closely, you notice that the background is quite sharp. What I will do here is I click on apply. Now it's a better picture. Overall, it's a better picture, so you can see before and after. What if I want the focusing range stays here? So foreground autofocus, midground in focus, background autofocus. Quite easy. I bring it into the center, then I narrowed it down. There we go. So if I increase the blurred, see now foreground is autofocus, midground is in focus, background is autofocus. You can adjust the amount of autofocus. Now, the AI here couldn't do the job because as you can see, the top is quite focused. That's why I will activate the visual and you see that it's a lighter shade of purple than the other part. So I'm going to create the blur and I'm going to blur these areas because they have to be blurred. By increasing the amount, I match the color. This part has to go to, there we go. Now, that's the original photo. That's the blurred one. You can really narrow it down to the point that you like your photo. Thank you again for watching this video. We do offer online and in-person Lightroom and Photoshop lessons. If you're interested in taking the lessons, feel free to contact us and we will set up a private class for you. Thanks again. This is Ted Kalsor. Stay tuned for our next week video. Have a nice day.